Hey everybody, Bob Gager from Adobe here with a Hangout with Bob. Today's subject is about installing Adobe Photoshop Elements 14. It's pretty straightforward, but I figured I'd do a Hangout with Bob on the subject just to make sure some of the nuances that folks have been asking about get covered so I can send people to this video when they have questions. So first of all, there's a couple ways to get Photoshop Elements 14, of course. You can buy the retail packaging. It's going to come in a box like this, or maybe if you buy the bundle of Adobe Photoshop Elements and Adobe Premiere Elements, it'll look a little bit different because it'll have two products inside the box. But basically, there's the retail packaging that you can get, or of course, there's the electronic software download from our website. So if you go to adobe.com, find Elements pages and purchase that way, instead of getting in a box, of course, you'll download it to your software. But what we're going to show you mostly today is the process of installing it from the box. The downloaded version will be pretty much the same process, other than you'll need to first download the software before you run the installer. So the important thing to know is that inside the box is an inner box. So when you get your product, cut the little protective tape there, pull out this inner box because this is where the good stuff is. There's really nothing in here, right? So we can take this, even though there's some pretty pictures and lots of descriptions of great features and all that kind of good stuff of what's in the product. We're just going to take that and throw it aside because in this box is the good stuff. So open this up and take out the two DVDs that are in here. Just throw the box aside, the little instructions, I'm going to throw those aside. Inside the box are two DVDs. There's one for Mac and there's one for Windows. So depending upon whether you're installing on a Macintosh or a Windows machine, just make sure you use the right DVD. Now, another important thing to note is that on the Windows DVD, that's this one, you probably can't read it because of all the glare, but that's okay. The Windows DVD, on the back of that envelope is something that's really important. Let me hold it the right way for you. And that, let me drop the Mac DVD, and that is this number right here. So this is your serial number. So a lot of people will often ask about entering their serial number. They say, hey, I've entered my serial number and it's not working. It's saying it's rejected or not valid or whatever. What I found is a lot of people will actually come to something like the box and these numbers here on the back, SKU numbers and whatnot. They try and use those as a serial number. Now, these are not the serial number. You have to have a real serial number, and you're going to find that on the back of your Windows DVD sleeve. On the back of the Mac DVD sleeve, there's nothing. So we only have one serial number sticker in the box. It's on the Windows, but even if you're on a Macintosh computer and installing on Mac, you'll use that same serial number. And the important thing to know that you've got a serial number is the first 4 digits of it. These numbers right here. It's going to be 1057. So if the number that you're trying to use does not start with 1057, it's not a serial number and it won't work. So make sure you find this sticker with a serial number of 1057. Now, sometimes you might buy a box that actually doesn't have a serial number in it. In some retail outlets like Best Buy, we sell through a method that we call point of sale activation. And inside your box, if you get one of these point of sale activation boxes, will be a card that will tell you about a website you have to go to. You'll enter in your activation code. I think sometimes it's called a redemption code. So you'll enter that code into the website, and that website will give you a serial number. So make sure you're not trying to use a redemption code, you're not trying to use an activation code, but you're actually using the serial number. Again, it will start with 1057. Now, you may see that serial number. That's my serial number that I'm about to use. Don't try and use that at home because we actually do check about how often serial numbers are used. You're allowed to use a serial number 2 times. If you try and use it to install Photoshop Elements on a third machine, it will actually fail and it won't work. So that's sometimes people will run into that situation where they can't install because they've actually used their serial number too many times. And I'm about to use mine once. I'll probably use it again, but maybe the first person who watches this video, your prize will be to try and use that serial number, and you can get a free copy of Photoshop Elements. But probably by the time you get to it, it will be used by somebody else. So anyway, let's get going. I'm going to take my Mac DVD. Again, no serial number on the back of that one, but that's okay. The serial number works on both platforms. Take out my DVD and pop it into my DVD drive. If you don't have a DVD drive, which is actually becoming pretty common for folks these days, in just a moment while the installation is going, I'll show you how you can go get a download of the software so you can install it without having purchased an electronic software distribution package. You actually purchased a box, but if you don't have a DVD, we still want you to be able to install the software, of course. So hang on just a minute, and I'll show you how we can go get a download in that case. So let's see. The first thing I want to do is hide my charming face and share my screen, because a lot of the things that you guys are going to want to see are actually on the screen itself. So let me do some screen sharing. I'm going to just share my entire screen and share. There we go. So let me also hide this window because you don't really want to see that obnoxiousness. There we go. So hopefully you can see this good. I inserted the DVD, and I've got this DVD right here on my desktop. Now I'm installing on a Macintosh. A Windows installation will be a little bit different, but for the most part it'll be the same. Once we get the installer running, of course, everything will be exactly the same. But you'll open up your DVD, you'll get a window like this, and Adobe Photoshop Elements 14, this icon right here, is our installer. Just go ahead and double click on that, and that is going to start the installation package. The first thing on a Mac that we need to do is actually open this program right here, install.app, and that is the installer. We're going to get that up and running, and we're going to install it on this Mac here. It takes a little bit to initialize things, depending upon the speed of your computer. That will be faster or slower. This computer is actually a little slow, so unfortunately it's going to take just a moment before we get up and running. But hopefully all this makes sense. Again, I'll try and do another Hangout with Bob and show you what the Windows version looks like when I'm on a Windows machine. But right now we're just sitting here on a Mac. Okay, I wish I could pause. There we go, initialize and installer. Okay, now we're up and running. I've got to buy myself a new computer that actually runs a little faster than this one. But that's okay. It'll get going in just a minute. If you're new to Photoshop Elements, and this is the first time that you're installing on your computer, the experience once we get up and running will be a little bit different. If you're a previous user of one of the versions of Photoshop Elements, once we launch the organizer, it will actually go off and do some detection of any previous Photoshop Elements installations that you have and bring forward that catalog of all your photos and videos and all the albums and organizational tasks that you've done and bring it up to the latest version inside Photoshop Elements 14. But I'll show you that when we get there in just a minute. Okay, so once the installer is up and running, I have a couple choices. I can install it if I've purchased it, or if I happen to have gotten this as a trial, or maybe somebody loaned me the DVD, I can actually just install it as a trial. Now this will be a fully functional 30-day trial. Everything that's in there is going to work exactly as if you had purchased it. The only caveat is it's only going to work for 30 days. And so within that first 30 days, once you fall in love with the product, you'll need to buy it, get a serial number, and install it for real on your machine. So I have a serial number. I'm going to just click install. One of the things that we need to do is sign in with our Adobe ID. Now, an Adobe ID is essentially a username password to create an account at Adobe. It's really important that you do have an Adobe ID, because as part of the process of installing the software with your Adobe ID, it actually gets registered to your account automatically. So you don't have to do that separate software registration stuff anymore. We take care of that automatically. And then if anything happens, like you lose your serial number or your machine crashes and everything's gone, you need to reinstall and get a new serial number, that kind of stuff. Having your software registered to your Adobe ID is critically important. So anyway, sign in required. This computer knows I've used my Adobe ID before, so I'm just going to go ahead and sign in with that Adobe ID. There's a software license agreement. Of course, read through all of this great gory detail and click accept once you find that fine. And then we're presented with a screen where we enter our serial number. Now again, if you are on a Macintosh, you've been using the Macintosh DVD, but the serial number is actually on that sticker I showed you earlier for your Windows DVD. So type in your serial number. Mine is 1057 4592 7678 8462 1792 and finally 4735. So again, just as a reminder, when you're entering your serial number, make sure the first 4 digits are 1057. If they're not 1057, it is actually not going to work for you. You don't have a real serial number. You have some other number that's not a serial number. So type in your serial number and hit next. And we'll go off and validate that serial number. Make sure it hasn't been used more than 2 times. If all that is good, we will give you a screen like this that says Adobe Photoshop Elements 14, where you want to install it. Probably just leave it in the default location is often best, and hit install. And then if you are on a Mac, you have to validate that it's allowed to install. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my computer password. This is not my Adobe ID. This is just my local password for my system at home. And hit OK, and then the installation process will start. So this will take a little bit. While we're doing that, I wanted to answer another question that we often get from folks, which is, how do I download the installer? I purchased the box. I don't have a DVD drive on my computer, and I want to install it. So let me open up a web browser here and show you where to find the downloads. It's pretty easy. Just go to something like Google, and once Google loads, come on, there we go. What you want to search for is Adobe Other Downloads. So Adobe Other Downloads, excuse me, will bring up at the very top, Other Downloads Adobe. Go ahead and click on that link, and that'll take you off to adobe.com and take you to our Other Downloads page. And this is a page that has lots of different downloads. You can see here we've got a section for Photoshop Elements. There's also a section for Premiere Elements. So if you're doing video editing and want to give our video editor a try, check out Premiere Elements. But we're installing Photoshop Elements. Depending upon your version, it will either be under this link for 9, 8, and 7, or if you're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, go ahead and click this link, and that will take you to the page where you can download the installer. About all you need to worry about is what version. So this very first one, of course, is the latest. Right now, that's Photoshop Elements 14. But if you're after an older version like 11, you can open up that section and get to the downloads for Photoshop Elements 11. For 14, all you really need to worry about is whether you're Windows or Mac, and click the appropriate download link. If you are on a Windows machine, it's important to make sure you download the right download, whether you're running your Windows operating system as a 32-bit installation or a 64-bit installation. We support both, so not to worry about that. But don't confuse them. If you have a 64-bit Windows installation and you download the 32-bit, it won't work very well, and vice versa, it won't work at all. So make sure you download the right one for your machine. Okay, so that's where you would get old downloads. Once you do the download, you would just extract it. It comes down as a zip file. So expand that compressed file and then run the installer, and you'll get back to exactly what we've got going on over here. All right, so let me quit my browser. Let's see, I didn't waste enough time showing you where to get old downloads. We've still got, gosh, 13 minutes left before the installer. Like I said, I need a new, faster machine here at home. That's okay. We can prevent dead airspace while this is installing by showing you some other interesting things. Let me actually just open up my web browser again. because while we're installing, you may want to go off and look at something like Facebook. An important place that you might be able to go to get lots of information is on our Photoshop Elements Facebook page. So many people are using Facebook these days. Go ahead and do a search inside Facebook for Adobe Photoshop Elements. You'll get this page. We have a team of people who are posting interesting content on almost a daily basis. So you can come here and see either just sort of inspirational content that'll help you get excited about doing some more photography work. We also post information about various new features and what they can do, tips and tricks and that kind of stuff. We occasionally post a series that we call Ask Bob. Let me scroll down here to our latest Ask Bob section. Where is it? It's down here somewhere, if I remember properly. There we go. There's our Ask Bob post of a couple weeks ago, back in the middle of December. This is your chance to come to Facebook and actually in the comment section of Ask Bob, ask me questions, and I'll come back here and answer them as best I can, or maybe schedule a quick Hangout with Bob session for you, or and answer your question live, or create a nice video tutorial and we'll post that back here to Facebook to answer your question if it's more complicated than can be quickly answered in Facebook comments. So our Facebook page is a really important resource for you to use to get into to working with Photoshop Elements and sort of getting an ongoing set of information. All right, 9 minutes left, so I've still got some time to kill. We've also got a Twitter feed, so at Adobe Elements will also get you into our Twitter feed if you follow that. I'm sorry, not at Adobe Elements, hashtag Adobe Elements. That'll get you following us on Twitter at Bob Gager, at BOBGAGER is my account on Twitter. If you add pound Adobe Elements and at Bob Gager and have a question about Elements, I will see that. I check regularly and I'll try and give it a quick answer. If it can be answered in 140 characters or less, if not, I'll maybe create a Hangout with Bob session and answer it that way, or maybe do one of these Ask Bob videos and we'll post it back here on our Facebook page. So critically important place to sort of spend some time both here on our Facebook page as well as Twitter, Adobe Elements, and we'll make sure that you get the right information that you need along the way. There are also various user forums. There's an Adobe user-to-user forum that a lot of people will go to get help as well. Inside the product, once we get it installed and launch it, look for the Help menu. Under the Help menu inside Photoshop Elements are all kinds of links to various help pages. We've got the user-to-user forums linked there. We've got video tutorials. We've got common terminology explained that you may not be familiar with that is important as you sort of dive into your digital photography activities and using Photoshop Elements, or really any photo editing tool. I think you'll find our common terminology page to be quite helpful. So be sure to check out the help link once you've got the product installed, because there's going to be a lot of stuff there that's really going to help you, of course. Here we go. We got about 5 minutes left. Boy, I wish I could. Oh, 1 minute. Look at that. It's going fast. Let me quit Safari. I think we're getting close to the installation being done. Oh, it jumped back up to 2 minutes. Look at that. Well, what do you know? Excuse me. So that's about all the jabbering I can kind of think of to talk while this installation process is going on. So maybe I'll just shut up and let it finish, and then we can go from there once it's done. Oh, and by the way, if you're not watching this live, of course, down in the bottom of your screen, you can use the playhead scrubber to scrub forward and skip all this boring stuff. So you don't need to sit here and watch the installation. Just go ahead and grab that little playhead, move it forward. Looks like about 2 minutes from where we are right now. And, excuse me, and that will let you get to the good stuff. Okay, looks like we are almost done. The DVD has been ejected from my machine and the installer looks like it's just cleaning up. There we go, installation is complete. And we can either close this. I could launch now and we would launch straight into the Photoshop Elements editor. But what I want to do is actually close this because I want to show you how you would normally launch, coming back a little bit later when you don't have the installer having just finished for you. So go ahead and click close. Looks like my computer is spinning a little bit. There we go. Now it's gone. And I want to show you on a Windows machine, the installer will actually drop probably over here on the top left a couple of desktop icon, or actually one desktop icon for Photoshop Elements. On a Macintosh, those are created in your applications folder. And so you would open your applications folder, you would look for Adobe Photoshop Elements 14, it's this dark blue one, and go ahead and open that. And then right here, Adobe Photoshop Elements 14.app or .app, go ahead and click on that. And if you're using your Finder, then of course double click to get it running. And that is going to launch Photoshop Elements. Now, what we launch is this thing that we call the welcome screen. Photoshop Elements is actually two applications in one. There's the photo editor and there's the photo organizer, so you can jump right into either editing your photos if you know where they are on your hard drive, or organizing your photos if you want to do some management of keeping track of all your photos and videos. The organizer actually works for videos as well. And we also show a video editor here. I mentioned this earlier. This is Adobe Premiere Elements. Now, on your Photoshop Elements DVD is a installer for the trial version of Premiere Elements. So if you want to give video editing a try, you can go ahead and install Premiere Elements as well. But for now, let's just drop into the organizer because this isn't really an overall tutorial on Photoshop Elements editing of your photos. It's just sort of how to install, how to get up and running. So launch the product, you'll get the welcome screen, and then go ahead and click on Organizer, and it will launch itself. Now, as I mentioned, if you have an earlier version of Photoshop Elements installed, the Organizer will recognize that, and it's done that now. It says I have a catalog called EO12 catalog, created with an earlier version of the product. Would I like to convert it to work now with Elements 14 Organizer? Now, I'm going to say no, but what you probably want to do is say yes. If you do say yes, convert it, it'll go ahead and do all the conversion, and then it'll open up all your photos and videos that you were working with your previous version of Elements with, and build it into a new catalog for Elements 14. But I want to click no, because for folks who don't have an earlier version, they would never even see that dialog box. And I want to show you the process of how to get up and running there. There we go. So the catalog will load. We start you off in something that we call Elements Live, which is a really interesting view of the product that brings a live feed of tips and tricks and tutorials to life for you. So you can both get some inspiration, you can get some tutorials, you can get some news. There's lots of really good information inside of Elements Live. What you probably want to do, if this is your very first time using the product, is scroll down a little bit, and right here, this one with the big Photoshop Elements logo, is your Getting Started Guide for Photoshop Elements 14. Go ahead and click on that, and that is going to open up a web browser and take you to a website that has a Getting Started Guide. And we will walk you through step by step what you need to know to literally get started with Photoshop Elements, including installing and launching. Now, we've already done that, so you can skip that. But we'll take you through importing and organizing your photos, some basic edits to make them look great, and then some of the techniques for saving and sharing your photos out with friends and family. So I'm not going to take you through all that now. I just wanted to make sure that you knew it was here. Instead, once you sort of explore Elements Live a little bit, to start working with your photos, you want to switch over to Media up here on the top, and then we're going to walk you through the process of importing your photos and videos into the Elements Organizer to get started with the product. Now, again, this isn't a tutorial on how to do all that, so I'm going to skip it. I just wanted to get you installed, up and running with the basics, and then we'll come back later with another Hangout with Bob to answer questions on all of the other stuff that can possibly be going on inside of Adobe Photoshop Elements. Thanks for your time, and I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me. Take care.